So now I'd like to introduce our next plenary speaker. He is Professor Dennis Davenport from Howard University, where he is Associate Chair and Director of Graduate Studies. Dennis received his PhD from Howard in 1987 and then joined the faculty at Miami University of Ohio. At Miami University, he developed the Summer Undergraduate Math Science Research Institute, an undergraduate research program which targets advanced mathematical science majors from underrepresented groups and women. He collaborated with several faculty at Miami University to start the Math Enrichment program, which is modeled after Uri Treisman's Calculus Workshop project. Davenport was a regional director of the MAA Strengthening Undergraduate Minority Mathematics Achievement (SUMMA) program from 1991 to 2000 and directed the Miami University Program of Ohio Science and Engineering Alliance, OSCE. OSCE is part of the NSF Lewis Stokes Alliance for Minority Participation program, which is designed to increase the number of members from underrepresented groups in mathematics, engineering, and the sciences. From 2000 to 2002, Davenport served as a program director in the Division of Undergraduate Education at the NSF. In the years since, he has returned to Howard and now holds the position of I already said that. I'm sorry, I'm reading. But I'll read it anyway. In the years since, he's returned to his alma mater as faculty and now holds the position of graduate director while also serving on the AMS Policy Committee on Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion. Dennis?
Thank you very much. I do have to make a correction. I am no longer the Associate Chair of the Director of Graduate Studies. That was a change that happened just this semester. But anyway, those experiences actually were very helpful. So I want to start off though with a saying that I don't know if you've heard. This is a saying by Martin Luther King Jr. And what he says is there's nothing more dangerous than sincere ignorance and conscientious stupidity. And I like that saying. I'd like to think that whenever I'm sitting in some area thinking about something, have more of the sincere ignorance. And I really think that that's when you start trying to develop these equity and diversity programs, that's usually where most people sit, I think. They're not really sure about what they're supposed to do. They try to do things that people tell them to do. And I do think that a lot of institutions get this wrong, mainly because they try to make it a hiring process more so than well, you got to think about more of your plan than just hiring. So here are two other things to think about. I think my guess is most people in here have heard of these two. The first one is the unconscious bias. In fact, and I should point out too, I added these slides based on some of the conversation I heard from graduate students at this conference and graduate students that I talked to a couple of days ago here at Howard. That's the reason why I added these slides. But unconscious bias, we actually do training here at Howard for that. And everybody that's actually in some type of position where they have to hire faculty, we have to go through this training. And basically the idea for this unconscious bias, there's a lot of experiments that have been done, which shows some of the issues that can come up with this. And usually there's simple things that they do, like they'll write two resumes that are essentially the same. One will have a name like Jamal Washington. Okay, Jamal Washington, right away, most people are going to think that's a Black person, right? Because I think something like the last name Washington now is mainly, the vast majority of people with the last name Washington now are African American. And then the other thing is Jamal. Whenever you hear Jamal, you automatically think that that's an African American. And then they'd send another one that has a name like Peter Smith or John Williams, where everybody identify it as being a white male, but the applications are essentially the same. In other words, if you strip out the name, you won't tell the difference. And they were surprised in this experiment how well how big of a difference the reviews were for the white sounding name as opposed to the African American sounding name. And So these are the sorts of things that you have to think about. The one that I always tell my students about, though, is stereotype threat. Stereotype threat, basically, and there are a lot of interesting experiments with this too. And to tell you the truth, the first time I heard about stereotype threat, it was at a conference in Berkeley. And there was a speaker, an invited speaker, that talked about stereotype threat. Then I started reading a lot about it after that. And I went to a couple more conferences where it was mentioned. And one of the people that coined this idea, Aronson, I actually had a conversation with him. I doubt if he remembered, because I was just somebody in the audience that came up and talked to him about this, about this idea. And one of the things it says is that students a lot of times will think, especially something like math, because the belief is that if you're a student of color, you're not good in math. If you're African American, you're not good in math. And so that's this stereotype. Strangely enough, even if you're good in math, you kind of buy into it. And some of the experiments that they do on this are actually really strange. Like there's one on putt-putt, where with a group of black males and white males, when they tell them that the idea behind how you do better, but when they tell them it's males do better. So there are a lot of weird experiments and interesting experiments. I heard about that, but one way they said of combating stereotype threat is to at least let the people know that it exists. And so that's why whenever I start a class here at Howard, the first day I give the syllabus and I give a short 5-10 minute talk on stereotype threat. I actually have a slideshow that I give. That really was taken from Arison's talk. So the thing that I saw here that actually sort of surprised me, and then I realized this happened from some of the students that I've dealt with here at Howard, is that a lot of these initiatives that I'm hearing faculty talk about were driven by students. So the students thought about these equity, we need to do something about this. And then faculty said, okay, let's do this. And the students are actually given their stories on some of the things that they face. And it really made me think about some of the things I faced when I was a graduate student. One of them, as I always encourage graduate students now to get a support group. And when I first went to University of Arkansas in Fayetteville, that's where I got my master's degree, I had no support group when I went there. And when I went there, there was a faculty member that would not, for some reason, meet with me. And that's what I thought. He would not meet with me, because every time I set an appointment to go to his office, either he was not there or he was there and would invite other people in to talk to him and leave me sitting out in the hall. So I'm thinking this guy's racist. I'm like, what kind of mess is this? So what I did was maybe about 2 semesters later, now I know some other the graduate students, and we're sitting around talking about just things happening. So and his name came up, and I called him a racist pig. And then they said, why do you say that? And I told him what he did to me. Well, all the students had similar stories. So then I realized, no, this guy's not racist, he's a jerk. So I actually went home happy then. I said, he wasn't picking on me, that was just his personality. And so there are things that you have to do, and this is part of this idea of when things happen to you, you automatically project on those. So I'm careful about that. And then something like this happened to me here at Howard too when I was a student. When I was a student, it was my first week of class. I had a professor that I thought was excellent. And I was really, really pleased with taking him. And he was really good at explaining things. And so what I did on Friday, we've been through 3 days of classes. I asked him, what kind of math are you doing? What kind of research? And he told me, well, the stuff that I'm doing is probably too hard for you. So you probably should talk to somebody else about what they're doing. That actually shocked me. It shocked me, one, because I was not asking to be his graduate student. I was just asking what he was doing. And then the other thing that shocked me was, I was like, how dare you? You don't even know who I am. You don't know anything about me. So I figured what he was doing was basing his opinion on how I looked. Now, the thing that bothered me about that is I was at Howard. So that was the thing I was thinking, here at Howard, I'm not going to get this kind of attitude. But you certainly did here. So in a lot of the different environments that you get, you hear these same types of stories. And other students of color can probably tell you similar stories that they got. But I have to admit, I was really surprised to get this at Howard. The main difference between being at a place like Arkansas and being at a place like Howard, I didn't get resistance from students when I taught as much. So when I taught classes here at Howard, I didn't get, when I was a graduate student, I didn't get resistance from students that much. They challenged me, yeah, but I didn't get resistance from them. When I taught at Arkansas and Fayetteville, I remember one class I taught, when I walked into the class, about a third of the class got up and walked out. As soon as I walked in, it turned out that was one of my favorite classes ever. And the reason was because those that stayed were really engaged, and I had a lot of fun with them. And they met with me a lot, so it actually was a lot of fun. So, but anyway, these stories, when you hear students tell these stories, and you talk to the faculty about different things that they face, there's always a little different. Because faculty, their stories are always a little different. Sometimes they're not accepted by other faculty members, depending on where they are. But most of the times, even if a faculty member doesn't accept you, they won't say anything to you as a faculty. Rarely do you hear them actually call you out in a meeting or anything like that. I thought I just did that. Yes. Some of that is important too. And this is the thing that I think when you have these diversity committees and you want to change something on your department or there on your campus, you have to think about the culture. The department culture is what you want to change, and that's very difficult to do. And I don't think a lot of people think about that. They're just thinking about things like increasing numbers. Sometimes they're not thinking about increasing numbers, but just increasing outreach. So are we bringing people here to look at what we're doing? Are we getting enough applications from people of color or women? So those are the sorts of things that they think about. And you really have to think about changing the department culture. And that actually takes a lot of work to do that, because you have to convince people who think that what you're doing, this whole idea of diversity, is not a good idea. You have to convince them that there is some merit to it. And everybody can gain, in the department can gain something if we make these changes. So this actually is something that, this is another slide that I decided to add after meeting with the graduate students. I met with them on Thursday. They actually started something that actually was kind of interesting. One day they came to me and told me they wanted to start a graduate student seminar. And I said, well, what do you mean by that? And they said, well, this is be a graduate student driven seminar. So we'll run the seminar, we'll invite speakers, we'll do all these different things. And we're not gonna ask faculty, we want them to come in and give talks and that sort of thing, and maybe give us ideas on who to bring. But that was really what they wanted. And one of the things that they added in this hour that they have is a wellness time. So this is time that faculty cannot go, and they sit there and during this time, this is what they told me happens. I've never been there, of course. And they reflect on what they've been through. They talk about things that have happened. And it's actually, from me talking to some of them, something that's been very helpful for them. Because they also talk about how to navigate the system here, something that they would normally not get. So I was very pleased when they actually decided to do this. I thought it was. So here's really what I was going to talk about, and this is the idea of enrichment programs for graduating seniors. Okay, so I ran an REU program at Miami, and Matthew was calling this Miami of Ohio. They hate that name because it is Miami University,
I
which
am
has
so
been in
sorry.
existence. No, no, I don't care. What happened when I found out that they felt that they were sensitive about this is when somebody wrote something about me, a blurb, and they said I was at Miami of Ohio. And then somebody came to my office and they were complaining about that. You need to tell them not to say that. And I was like, why? And they said, you do know that we're much older than the state of Florida. And I was like, really? I didn't know the history at that time. This is my first semester there. But yeah, it turns out that Miami University was around long before University of Miami. And the name Miami actually comes from Ohio and not Florida. So the big question was, how did the name get to Florida? That was the thing that I wanted. But the Miami Indians or Miami Native Americans were from that region in Ohio. But anyway, while I was there, I started this REU. And as applications came in, once we got established, we were getting about 100 to 120 applications for 15 spots. So once they started coming in, I realized there's a lot of students that were missing here that I can't, just because of some of the constraints I have on the program, and some of them were artificially set by me. Some of them were actually there by the funding agency. We were funded by both NSF and NSA. And what it was that these students, they had to return to the institution after the summer. So these graduating seniors we could not take. There were some really good ones I wanted to take, but we could not take them, and use their money. And then the other students that I looked at, this is the ones that was artificially set by me. I didn't have enough at that time ingenuity or the imagination, really is what it was. I didn't have enough imagination to come up with a good plan. And so these students, we were getting a lot of applications from students that were in they just completed their first or second year and had no proof-based course. So I could not admit them either, because one of the requirements that we had is you had to have a proof-based course. And so I did not admit them. The other group that I did take a chance on a couple that were here, and these are the ones that are emerging students. So in other words, they start off slow, and then all of a sudden, their junior, senior year, they start doing really, really well. And you see this kid has some talent, and going to an REU would really help them out. Well, usually their GPAs are not that high. And these REUs are really driven on sending their students on to graduate school. And a lot of times you look at some of them, like one of them, I knew I couldn't accept him because he only had a 2.5 GPA. And I knew that it would be a stretch for him to even get into graduate school. There's some graduate schools that probably would take him, but a 2.5, most places are not going to take him. So everything really was dependent on what was going to happen his senior year. He was a junior at the time, but he had started off really bad, even had some F's in his transcripts, and now he was doing much better. So my question is, what happens to those students? How do you address those students? So these three groups of students were ones that I started trying to think about. What can we do to give them this enrichment that we're given to students that are usually pretty good students? You know, out of the 100 or so applications we'd see, probably 20 to 40, depending on the summer, would have 4.0 averages. So you're seeing all these really great averages and things. So it makes it really hard to choose somebody when you only have a finite amount of money, to choose somebody over these other people that are doing really well and look like they're deserving of these spots. So I actually did come up with a way to address the other two. The graduating senior year is a hard one to do, though, and there are some things that they're doing. But the big thing is that they cannot attend most REUs. There are some exceptions now, but the question is, what do you do for these graduating seniors? That's pretty much what I'm going to talk about. By the way, enrichments for graduate students, once they get to an advanced stage, it almost takes care of itself, right? They're at this stage now where during the summer they're trying to study and learn, or they're trying to do research and that sort of thing. Usually the enrichment that they need is professional development. Things like teaching, finding jobs, finding employment. That's usually the sort of thing that's outside of academia, finding employment outside academia. So here are 4 programs or types of program. And while I was thinking about this, I mentioned NSA. I forgot about NSA. NSA actually has a summer program that takes graduating seniors too. I forgot to put that one in here. But the ones that are in here are PCMI, which is Park City Math Institute. This is held in Park City, Utah. It's actually under the umbrella of the Institute of Advanced Studies at Princeton. And they have a 3-week program that the program actually is really nice. The 3-week program, they have a lot of different parts to it. They bring in research, so it's on a common theme. So they have a common theme, and on this common theme, they bring researchers in this area. They bring in graduate students to do a summer school in that area. They bring undergraduate students to do, again, coursework in that area too. And they also bring in undergraduate instructors. So these undergraduate instructors are ones that may want to create an undergraduate course at their institution over this topic. So and there's always some specialized topic that's hot at that time. I'll talk more about these 2 programs, the graduate summer school and the undergraduate summer school part too. The undergraduate summer school part actually does take graduating seniors, by the way, take graduating seniors. You normally, in fact, a graduating senior would apply for the undergraduate summer school and not the graduate summer school. The graduate summer school usually will take students if you're in your if you completed your first year of graduate school, because that's actually a time I think where you could use some enrichment because you're still just doing coursework there in your at your graduate school. So the summer you can do that. The other thing that at first, when these first came out, I was not all that high on them, and that's these Postbac programs. So there are a few of these Postbac programs. I think they actually serve an important mission now, and I think the more of them we have, the better. All these kind of, in fact, outreach things that you get, I'm one that believes the more that you have, the better. Some of these Postbac programs are actually directed towards specific underrepresented groups, and some of them just take students all together, but they encourage students from underrepresented groups to apply. And then the other one is one that I'm sure there are many people here that know of, and this is the EDGE program, Enhancing Diversity in Graduate Education. So it's one of my favorite programs, one that I really admire. I admire the 2 people that founded this program very much. And the program itself has a lot of success, and it started about, I think, in 1998, something like that, and it's been ongoing and has gone through several changes as far as the director. And that really is a sign of a successful program in my mind. You can have success in these programs and then the program ends. That happens a lot, which is what I tried not to happen in the program that I started at Miami. I wanted the program to continue even after I left. And when I first started looking into REUs, the data showed that the average REU was around, would last for about 10 years. And those 10 years, that's when the original director would quit, say, I want to do something else, and would stop doing it, and then the program would die. So the thing that I was trying to do when I did mine, this is the whole thing about changing the culture, is I wanted the department to take ownership of the program and not me to be the owner of the program. So when I started it, you heard in the introduction, it was with a group. So I actually wrote the proposal, and then what I did was I went around in the department and I had informal meetings, and I actually called a department meeting, and had groups come in and talk about what I was trying to do and if they were willing to contribute to this project. And to my surprise, a lot of them were willing to do it. Most of them just wanted to give a talk, though. That was kind of discouraging, but I did get a couple of them that actually wanted to do research projects and wanted to do other entities that I had in this program. So the graduate summer program for PCMI, this actually is kind of a neat program. You're in Park City for 3 weeks, and Park City is beautiful in the summer. It's really beautiful. They feed you. It's kind of a nice environment when you're there. They have lunch, a big lunch that's under a huge tent every day, except they don't have that on the weekend. But they have a lot of different things are going on there because all these groups are meeting on this common theme, and you're able to float in and out to different sessions. So if you want to go to the graduate summer school session, you can actually go in there and see what they're doing. You could go into the undergraduate one, see what they're doing. The only one well, actually, I did go and I actually worked with them for a couple of years. And I did go into the research one. They're a little, you know, they're talking on something that if you have no idea what they're talking about, it's a little hard to follow what they're doing, but it's still interesting to see their interaction. But one of the other things that's nice about that is that these researchers will leave those programs and go to the undergraduate program and talk with the undergraduate students. So the undergraduate students get to talk to some of the powerful researchers that are in these areas. But this is one of the main parts that they have for the program. So it's several mini courses is actually what they give during the 3 weeks. And these mini courses, now it says it's attended by all graduate student participants, and it says that many of the participants in the research program as well. Also, though, what happens is it's not quite all the graduate students, because what I found once when I was there is there's some graduate students that went there and felt that this was over their head. So what they did is the part and participate in that. So to the undergraduate part and participated. So what I did is graduate summer programs really hard, because I said I tried to get as many undergraduate students as possible, graduate students as possible to participate. And I was really looking for students from underrepresented groups. So I was looking for women, and I was looking for minorities. So when I recruited for them, I actually went to something like Field of Dreams, Math Alliance, Field of Dreams. I went to SACNAS. I went to a lot of different conferences like that to try to recruit to get some of these undergraduate students and graduate students to attend PCMI. So the undergraduate is probably about the same way. They also, I'm sorry, I don't know how I'm doing on time, but anyway.
It's about 1:30. You're doing well.
Okay, good. So they also on the undergraduate one is sort of the same way. It is centered around, again, the same theme that the entire program is. Well, there's a couple of exceptions in the program that are not centered around these themes, but for the most part, it's centered around the same theme. And so they come in, and there are different courses, again, many courses that happen during the week. So they start off with one the first week, and the second week, and the third week, and the degree of difficulty is supposed to change as you progress. So this is the one that I always push graduating seniors to think about attending. You know, go ahead and think about attending this. You can't go to most REUs. Most of these REUs you absolutely cannot attend. So this here actually gives you an option of something that you can go to, but it is not an REU. Some of the undergraduate students that you get in there actually are juniors. So they're going into their senior year, and they've done a couple of REUs, and now they're ready to do something different. And this program comes across their desk with an area that they're interested in. And so they'll go here and spend a 3 weeks in Park City. They also have a lot of events for you to do there too, so that people don't get entirely involved in everything and can focus on, can release some focus. They have hikes. They have times where they play soccer too, I guess. But they have things, and faculty enjoy their time there. So here are 4 postbac programs that I know about. All of them are a little different. The Iowa State one actually gives a certificate when you're done. I don't know if it's happening in your institution, but here at Howard, it's really big on these certificate programs now. In fact, it was to the point where they wanted departments to come up with certificate plans. We want you to have a certificate program. And so they're money makers, for one, because now who can take these certificate programs usually are people that are not necessarily at the institution. So they want, a lot of them, they want them to be done online too, because they want to allow somebody in California, for example, to do the one here at Howard. So this Iowa State one actually does give a certificate once you go through it. What they all are, though, the main theme for all of them is basically the same. It's a 2-semester intense program where you look at advanced undergraduate courses. So who would go to these? You can actually think of students that come from weak institutions. And when I say that, the institution where I got my undergraduate degree was a small HBCU. And when I went to Arkansas, I realized, well, I realized this before I went back, that the algebra that I was being taught, the abstract algebra I was being taught at my small school, was not a real abstract algebra course. In fact, if you had asked me what a group was, the only reason why I knew what it was from reading that book. It was never mentioned in class. If you can imagine that, you take an abstract algebra course and the definition of a group is never mentioned. So I knew that if I wanted to get a PhD, I needed to look at these books and think beyond what is happening. So these postbac programs would be good for somebody like me that came from a program where there were some deficiencies. Probably the other place where it comes from, where it would be good, is say somebody sits out a year or so, maybe 2 years, and wants to come back but doesn't have confidence and really needs some type of refresher. So a postbac would be good for them. Or it could be someone who majored in something else, majored in, say, economics, but wants to go into mathematics. So instead of starting off in a math program, they might want to start off in one of these postbac to give them the necessary background to be successful. The one that I'm probably most familiar with is the one at Northwestern, because I've worked with those faculty members on other projects. And I've been there a couple of times to give talks. Actually, I said a couple of times. One time, give a talk with their GLOW program, which is a program for women. But their postbac program actually is about the same. That's what I just mentioned. It's intense study on advanced undergraduate courses, and they really work hard with the students, and they do a lot. It's a lot of other things that are involved in just the coursework. They talk about things on how to navigate the graduate culture, because that's actually something I think if you're from an institution that really doesn't send a lot of people to graduate school, then those kind of conversations you really need. The one at Smith College has been around for a long time. I actually know some students that have gone to that one, and they're really looking for women. They are focusing mainly on women. Oh, by the way, the one at Northwestern mainly focused for groups from underrepresented, students from underrepresented groups. That's who they mainly focus on, students from underrepresented groups. So Smith College mainly focuses on women, and it's been around for quite some time. It's kind of an interesting program in that its focus, again, is the same. You go through this high intense undergraduate advanced courses in mathematics that you look at, and they also talk about other things. This one also will talk some about research projects with you too, to get the women to think about research projects. The next one, the one at Washington University, is the only one where I saw this. Someone can correct me if I'm wrong on the other three, but what they do in this one, the other thing is the joint postbac program, which they call the JPPP. When I first saw it, I was like, why just Washington University if it's joint? Well, the joint is for the departments there at WashU. It's not for another institution. So this is really for mathematics, physics, and earth science. Those are the three disciplines that you have to be in to apply for this program. Now, the one difference that I saw in this one that I didn't see in the others is that after the year, well, not after the year, but I think it's in the last semester of the year that you're on the program, they'll evaluate your performance. And if they feel your performance was strong enough, they'll admitted into their program, and it's a my understanding is it's a seamless admission. So it's not like you have to write to be readmitted or anything like that. All of these though provide funding too. That's actually one of the important things. They all provide funding if need be. Some of them actually, if you go to their website, they'll tell you exactly how much the funding is. Others, what they'll do if you go to the website, they'll just tell you that you could apply for funding. That's the sort of thing that they tell you. Now, you have to be careful about some other programs that people are saying are postbacs, the bridge to the doctorate. I don't know if anybody in here has had an LSAMP award. In fact, the bridge to the doctorate is not even a grant. What it is it's a supplement to award. So if certain affiliations to apply restrictive though. It's restrictive in the sense that if you get the award, the only students at your institution that can actually get that are ones that are tied to LSAMP in some way or tied to another NSF program that's supposed to increase minority and diversity there at your institution. So that's the one that's kind of tricky. But if you're at an LSAMP program at another institution, so you can apply to the one that's here at Howard and get that post back. We don't have it this year, but we've had it we've had it maybe for 3 years. I think we did have the bridge to the doctorate supplement. But it's actually a really nice program. Actually, LSAMP is a nice program. That one's been around for a long time. If you don't know anything about that program, you really should look it up. And one of the problems that you see with LSAMP, they are looking for numbers, increased numbers. But one of the problems that you see in that is they don't provide scholarships for students. So the idea is not to provide scholarship, but it's provide other mechanisms to increase the numbers. And their idea on this actually is to change the culture. And it's for all STEM majors too, or STEM disciplines, for all STEM disciplines too. So the EDGE program, as I said before, it was started in 1998 from Spelman College. She's one of my heroes, by the way. There's a lot of really strong things that she's done as far as looking at diversity issue. Both her and her husband did that. And then Dr. Rhonda Hughes is someone else that I really admire at Bryn Mawr. So basically what they did, I think somewhere around there, EDGE was always held at one of these institutions. So it rotated between to do that. And now Dr. Bozeman and Dr. Hughes are no longer the directors of this program now. I forget who's the director now. Sorry, this is what happens when you get old. I know who it is, but I can't remember. Her name is on the tip of my tongue and it's not coming out. But anyway, but they've always put it in capable hands. So whoever's been the director has always done a really good job with the program. And so they're still ongoing. They've actually taken it out of so much the funding. They actually have a new funding plan on it that actually is really interesting. It's through the Bozeman Hughes Foundation. It's actually where the funding comes now. And it's kind of interesting because what they'll do is they'll look for partners to come in and support them somehow. So it's actually really a strong program. Now, the thing that they do, which I find that's really good, is they get students to develop strong support groups while they're there. So they have these activities where you have short courses again, where students are learning taught in classes, is that you get these connections that students have with other students. So some of the problems that they can have, issues that they may have at one institution, there's an EDGE person that they can call that can help talk them through it, help calm them down, give them help, and they help each other academically too. So if they have a problem, a problem that you're working on and you're having issues with, then that's something that you can do too. The program is really connected, meaning that I have a student here that's been an EDGE participant, and she wanted to know something about something else on what to do. She asked me, I had no clue. So she wrote one of the old EDGE participants who has graduated and is now a professor at another institution. And so then they developed a relationship where they chatted and she was able to answer this question that she had asked me. But anyway, it's actually a very strong program. It has a lot of strong support, and I think that's something that's very important for graduate students. I think graduate students should always try to develop a strong support structure. I think it's really important that you do. So that was my last slide, but there was another thing I wanted to talk about in here, and that is what can you do? Okay, what can be done? And I can tell you some of the things that I've done to help students here at Howard, as far as looking at and some of them people are doing already. And part of it is have workshops for students where these and you do it on areas that they would normally not take in class. So it's not these traditional type classes that they do. So you try to give them something like that where they can be engaged and think about things. I think it's very helpful. The other thing that I've actually done, I'm not so sure if I'm going to have an REU this summer, but whenever I had REUs, I would hire graduate students to assist. And these graduate students, they come in, I would make them a part of the project. So sometimes they've come in and not known exactly what we were doing. But I always told them, well, hey, look, these undergraduate students don't know, you're a graduate student. they'll figure it out and you'll figure it out. And so I just let them work together, and usually they do figure them out. And they work with the undergraduate students on the project some. I've been actually they've been able to publish papers by doing this. So there are a lot of things that you have to do to get students engaged. What some departments have is they have programs where they help students learn how to be better teachers. I don't think I'm a very good instructor. I think part of the reason is because I teach the way I was taught, and I've added on to that because I know that that's not good. The way I had some instructors that were very, very good, but then I had some that were not, but all of them basically taught the same way. The ones that were good usually explained things better than the ones that were not. And the ones, so I had some that were not good that just would not talk to you. You could ask them a question and they would say, look it up, figure it out. One of them told me one time, which I was funny, you come to me with the answer. I was like, oh, wow. I don't know. So I had to stay up all night trying to figure out what it was. And then I went to him and talked with him. And in a way it did drive me, right? Because it made me look for the answer and find the answer, and I discussed it with him, and he was willing to talk with me about it then. So there are things that I have learned, even doing something like the Moore method. I sort of do that more now than what was taught to me. I mean, I have one instructor that did it when I was in graduate school, but no one else. Everyone else it was lecture type format that most of us are used to. So if you have any comments or any questions, please ask me. I like to think that I'm always trying to come up with new ideas. I think being innovative is really important. So some of these things that we've been doing for years, obviously we need new ideas, because those ideas that we've been doing for years is not increasing the numbers like we would like, or it did at one time and now we're stalled. So if we're stalled, something else has to be done. So I'm always interested and open to new ideas. And that's all I have.
Okay, well, let's start by thanking Professor Davenport, sort of by whatever version of applause you can handle on Zoom. Thanks very much. So as a reminder, we'll transition to breakout rooms in a few minutes. And if you want to post questions for Dennis, you can do it in the Slido. Bianca just posted the link to the Slido in the chat. And I do have some questions here. So one question is, how many of these programs are funded in ways that allow students who are not U.S. citizens or permanent residents, including undocumented students, to participate?
Yeah. Okay. So that's an issue. Most of them they're funded through the federal government, and if they're funded through the federal government, they're not going to allow you to apply unless you're one of these permanent resident status. Some of them know there's actually will admit, so really I would read, most of them have the same problem that REU programs do. A friend of mine had an REU program that was co-funded by his institution, and from the funds that he got foreign students, but and actually students that are missed, the undocumented students. I found a way around that when I was at I don't mean undocumented, I mean the ones that are not non-US citizens. One thing that I did, which they would allow you to do when I was at Miami, was hire students that were not citizens. So I would hire them. So they would come in, they were undergraduate students, I would hire them, but they would come in and I would just put them to work.
So actually that's a that first question and the way you discussed it, and involving the importance of federal funding, is a good lead into the next question here in the Slido, which is what are the AMS and other professional societies doing to support these programs, and what should they be doing to support them?
Well, so MAA has a nice program. I don't know if you heard of this. And I used to actually at the joint meetings give a workshop on this program. It's an NREUP program. And what it does, and saying this is a program, it's not for a lot of money. So it's like for $27,000. And so a lot of people didn't want to write for it then. So you had to have at least 4 students. And the faculty, I think it was 5,500, was there for you to give yourself. But of course, you didn't have to do that. I think one year when I did it, I did not take that money. I gave that money to another student because I felt it was more important. And plus, I was getting money doing other stuff. So I like money, but I don't want to be a hog. I think it's good for if you can get another student involved and you see that that's one that is deserving, then I would gladly get that money up. So but in REUP program, what that program is, you have to have at least 4 students. The proposal actually is a very simple proposal to write because it's very specific on things that you have to say, and the max it could be is 3 pages, which really makes it kind of difficult, very challenging, because you're writing a 3-page proposal. You have to have a project in there that you're doing. And the thing that I thought was the hardest thing when I first wrote one is that you have to include the students. So you have to mention the students. So you're writing this in the fall for money to run a program in the summer, and you have to mention 4 students, minority students, and they're very specific, underrepresented groups. They don't include Pacific Islanders is really what they're looking for. So you have to mention those students in this proposal that you send to them. And you have to mention their standing. There's some information that you have to say on it. So when I did it, what I did is I just wrote some students. I knew some students because I had a program running there at Howard. And I wrote to students and I said, hey, look, math major, tell me, can I put you in this proposal? And some of them, they would balk at it. Well, no, I said, look, you don't have to come, but I need to have 4 students in here. So just allow me to put you in here. And then if you decide to come, that's good. And so I think the whole idea from MAA's point of view is that you're making the effort to find students to be in your program. And all the time, though, I've been able to get 4 students, 5 students. One time I actually had 6 students in the program, and I got funding from another grant that I had to support one of the other students. So MAA definitely has a program that's doing this. I don't think AMS does. AMS probably could easily get one, and there's a lot of so the problem that you have with these programs, especially that are controlled by different entities, separate entities, they always feel that somebody is stepping on somebody's toes by doing something just like we are. But at NSF, they had a program once called ANI, it was for Adapt and Implementation. So you adapt a project that somebody else is doing to your situation and you implement it. So if you know what I mean, an outsider finding out, through the grapevine that you're doing something that's almost like what they're doing, but you're changing certain things. So there are, and my hope is that AMS will get involved in this and start doing programs like this. I personally think it's an easy thing to do, and I think that they can hit it in another direction.
So.
Go ahead.
So,
I'm ready.
we're coming, Dennis. We had occasional trouble, as you anticipated. We had occasional trouble with the Zoom audio. It has generally been pretty easy, pretty manageable. Just now you dropped out, and I didn't hear the very end. But I also noticed that we're at the hour. We can continue. Please continue submitting your questions. But I wanted to say two things. One is that I see that Catherine Roberts is here from the AMS, and people who are interested in what the AMS is doing. I think she put something to support programs like EDGE. Put something in the chat, but you could probably contact her either in a breakout room here or directly to find out more about the AMS's activities. The other thing is, I really appreciated, Dennis, what you said at the beginning about the importance not just of increasing numbers as a target, but of changing culture. And it gave me it reminds me that I was supposed to promote to those of you who are involved in graduate programs one way or another, that paraDIGMS has bookend conferences at either end of the year, but we also have this core activity throughout the academic year, these working groups. And if you are a graduate program leader, and that doesn't mean a director of graduate studies, but a faculty member involved in a graduate program who is interested in promoting things like changing culture, we strongly encourage you to get in touch with us to possibly join a working group.